Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald. Good evening, everybody. Well, today is the 28th of March. Tomorrow, of course, the 29th of March is the day, is it not, that we're due to leave the European Union. This should have been my last show on LBC with us as European Union members. But, of course, it's not to be. Because last night the House of Commons voted to extend that date, and you know the game, don't you? If Mrs May's new European treaty gets passed, we have an extension until the 22nd of May. That date chosen to avoid, at all costs, the catastrophe that they think the European Parliament elections would be. And if it doesn't pass, we then have until the 12th of April to make our minds up. And we could still leave on the 12th of April with no deal, although I have to say, doesn't appear to be much support for that amongst the Prime Minister, amongst Parliament, amongst the Cabinet. So what's happening? Well, tomorrow, on the 29th of March, and this, in fact, was a timetable that was set down at the European Summit last week. So we have until 11 p.m. tomorrow night on European Union instructions. We have until then to ratify the new European treaty so that we get that extension until the 22nd of May. And we do leave the European Union. We won't be members of the European Union, but we will be wrapped in to this new arrangement. And that's why tomorrow the British Parliament will be debating and voting once again on this new treaty. Why is Mr Bercow allowed it? Remember, he quoted April 1604 as being a reason why you can't keep putting the same motion back to Parliament. Well, this time they've dropped the bit that was the political declaration. They were the hopes, thoughts and aspirations for the future, or, I think as I put it slightly cynically, a child's wish list to Father Christmas. But the withdrawal agreement, let's just remind ourselves, defeated once by 230 votes, defeated a second time by 149 votes. It's going to be voted on tomorrow at 2:30. And joining me and helping perhaps to try and make some sense of it, because it's not easy, is LBC's political editor, Theo Usherwood. So, Theo, is it third time lucky for the Prime Minister?
It's not looking like it's going to be third time lucky for the Prime Minister tomorrow, Nigel. What we were expecting to happen, the argument that the Prime Minister was going to make, was that she was going to point across the dispatch box and say to Jeremy Corbyn, this is your one opportunity to deliver Brexit. Are you going to be able to go back to your constituencies in the north of England, Labour leave voting constituencies, and look those voters in the eye, those voters who voted to leave the European Union in June 2016, and say that you didn't stop Brexit from happening if you vote down this deal tomorrow night. She's given up on a large chunk of the European Research Group, the DUP. That wasn't where her focus was going to be. It was all about putting the pressure, putting the squeeze on Jeremy Corbyn to whip his MPs through the I lobby and vote for the withdrawal agreement as the start of the Brexit process on May the 22nd. Yeah. And then also saying, in fairness to members of the ERG, her Conservative Brexiters, listen, I'm going to give you a blank sheet of paper for the political declaration. I'm not going to set anything down in the political declaration about what the future relationship might look like.
And I won't be the Prime Minister.
Because, of course, she will not be the Prime Minister to negotiate that second phase. It will be up to somebody else. And so that was also seen as a way of wooing over, persuading members of the ERG. The only problem is, of course, within the last few minutes, Jeremy Corbyn has come out and said it's a ruse, which it was, of course, to try and get him on side. He's not going to bite. The campaign has already started amongst Labour MPs. It's not going to go through on the back of those votes. And it's only back then to the ERG and to the DUP whether they're going to support the deal. And we know that is very unlikely because, as you said, Nigel, April the 12th is 2 weeks away, and that has become a magic date when a no-deal Brexit would kick in.
I've spoken myself to a couple of ERG members today who hold exactly the same view as I do about this new European treaty, that it is a legally binding international treaty, very hard to get out of, and many think actually the terms of it are worse than current EU membership. So she loses tomorrow. Let's work on that basis. You believe that, I believe that. I can't see this going through. What happens then? I mean, because Parliament last night had the chance to find its own way forward, 8 motions before Parliament, 7 of them basically remain motions, one of them a leave motion, and all 8 lost. I mean, whether we should laugh or cry at this, I'm not sure.
Well, the ball definitely gets hit back over the net to Sir Oliver Letwin, who firstly seized control of government business and allowed those votes to happen. He said last night that he would have another go at those votes on Monday to cries of shame and resign. Of course, that being a dig at the fact that he'd nominated himself as de facto Prime Minister for the afternoon. But he's going to be Prime Minister again on Monday afternoon. And we're expecting Sir Oliver Letwin on Monday afternoon to pick the 2 options. Of course, you're quite right to say, Nigel, none of them gained a majority in the House of Commons, but to pick the 2 or 3 options that did the best. So the first option was the Customs Union plan put forward by Ken Clarke, Arch-Remainer MP for Rushcliffe. That lost only by 8 votes. The other one is to hold a second referendum on Mrs May's deal. That lost by 27 votes. Incidentally, how many Labour MPs voted against that?
Let's try 27.
27, exactly. Members of the ERG are chanting Team Seamus. Of course, Seamus Milne is Jeremy Corbyn's right-hand man and seen as the power behind the throne there, and seen as a Eurosceptic as well. So it's complicated for Labour. They are going to have to find a way of organising to support one of the options alongside Conservative Remainers if a customs union plan or a second referendum is to be possible. And of course, Jeremy Corbyn voted for that, but there is a feeling widely held within the Labour Party that he doesn't want a second referendum because of the damage that would do in the Labour heartlands.
And yet Jeremy Corbyn last night, unbelievably, voted for a second referendum.
Yes, he did. He did vote for a second referendum, which was, Remainers are busy chuntering away in Westminster today about how Jeremy Corbyn has been on a journey, but there would be a second referendum on a deal, a withdrawal agreement, if it were to be passed. And of course, the calculation for Jeremy Corbyn and those around him is it will never pass and it will never be put to the test. And it's an easy bone to throw to Remainers within his own party.
Is the most likely outcome, assuming we're right about tomorrow's vote, that we get an extension? A year's extension, a 2-year extension, something like that.
But Mrs May has to go and ask for something.
She does, yeah.
She can't just say...
And they could veto it.
And they could veto it. Mrs May needs to go and say to her European leaders, the 27 other EU leaders, I need an extension because I want to do X, whether that's implement a customs union plan or hold a second referendum. And the Prime Minister's spokesman today couldn't ask the question when it was put to him that there was going to have to be a plan, and Parliament hadn't agreed a plan last night. Well, they simply say Parliament's going to take control of the process. But hang on a moment. Last night they didn't take control of the process, and that's why there is a view that the closer we get to April the 12th, the more likely now a no-deal Brexit comes back into play.
Yeah, I think it does. Theo, thank you very much indeed. Well, no one's pretending it's easy, but and the motion itself is extraordinary, and in a few minutes I will read out the motion that Andrea Leadsom read out to the House of Commons at 5 o'clock. But what do you think? Do you think it's time now that MPs fell into line? And if you think, yep, at least it gets Brexit of some kind, call 0345 6060 973. Or maybe like me, you think, far better to reject this. Mrs May will fall with it at some point this year and we can press the reset button, in which case text to 84850. And is Parliament's handling of all of this leaving you feeling disenfranchised and angry? If so, tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and Facebook, as you can comment too. Let's head up to Manchester and speak to Sammy, who's a first-time caller. Good evening, Sammy.
Good evening.
So, is it time for MPs to fall in line, swallow their pride and back this treaty?
Well, yeah, I think it is now, because it's gone on too long, and I'm more frightened of having another referendum. I mean, I'd like to come out without a deal altogether.
Yes.
Go to WTO. But if they vote for another referendum, I think that could open another can of worms.
Sammy, I'm going to argue to you that by rejecting this treaty tomorrow, the chance of a no-deal Brexit is still on the table.
Yeah, but it's just, I think they're more likely to vote for another referendum. And I think if that happens, then I think we're in trouble, really. I mean, I think Leave will win it again.
Yep.
Yeah. But then I think that gives the right for the SNP to put forward for them to have a second referendum on their independence.
So, Sammy, really, in your heart, you want us just to leave, as an increasing number of British people do.
Yeah.
You don't like this treaty at all, but you think the time has come just to say, hey, just get it over the line, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, Sammy, thank you for that. Let's go to Alan, a first-time caller in Blandford, down in Dorset. Hi, Alan.
Hello, Nigel.
So, now you've got, not very far away from you, you've got Richard Drax, who is one of the Tory MPs in South Dorset. He is an ERG group member. What do you think he should do? Because he's been so opposed to this new treaty. What's your advice to him, Alan?
I think really they should have stuck to their guns and be pushing for a no deal, really.
Well, I think Richard Drax is pushing for a no deal. It's just that...
Yeah, well, I think all the ERG should be. But it seems like some of them have turned, doesn't it?
Well, yes, one or two did turn yesterday, and it was this promise of which we debated last night, this promise of Theresa May going as Prime Minister. Oh, if Theresa's going, it's fine. We can, we can vote for this. But actually, they're still voting for something that they don't really like. So, Alan, do you think it makes sense then? Stick to your principles, hope for no deal, but don't accept this under any circumstances?
I think so, yes. Yeah, I think, as I think I've heard you say before, this deal was a sort of half in, half out. We'd be better off staying in if that was the case,
It's a dreadful deal, Alan. My view is it's the modern-day version of... I've said it before, but the modern-day version of a Treaty of Versailles. It's a very bad peace after a great victory. There's a £39 billion reparation bill. They want to annex Northern Ireland. It will lead to years and years of acrimony. Alan, I am with you. Evening, Nigel. Mrs May bringing her European treaty back yet again tomorrow is nothing more than another slap in the face to those of us who voted Leave. How much longer can this go on? It's getting depressing. Vince, in Exeter, I think a lot of people are depressed, bewildered, angry, and just the sheer level of shenanigans and games in Parliament, I don't think it's impressing anybody. In a minute, I'll read out the motion to be voted on tomorrow, but for now, you're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:15, and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
The Commons Speaker has now cleared the way for MPs to debate and vote on the EU withdrawal part of Theresa May's Brexit deal only tomorrow. A man in his 20s has died after being stabbed in the neck in Liverpool this afternoon. 3 people have been arrested by police following an LBC investigation into alleged anti-Semitism among Labour Party members. LBC weather clear and dry for most overnight, along with patchy fog in the south, windy further north, a low of -1.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. It's heavy on the M23 southbound through the roadworks. The entry slip road at junction 9 for Gatwick Airport is partly blocked because of an accident. On the M1 southbound, there are queues from junction 11A for Dunstable to junction 11 for Luton after an accident earlier on. It stays very slow on the M25 anti-clockwise from junction 3 for the M20 to the Dartford Tunnel after an accident earlier. In Fulham Palace Road is closed both ways at Wardour Avenue. That's because of an accident. There are queues from the Hammersmith Gyratory and going over Putney Bridge. And it's very slow embarking on the A13 Alfred's Way westbound. The lane's closed at Movers Lane because a 4x4's broken down, and there's still no London tram link. That's because of a strike.
LBC.
From big business owner to small startups, the LBC Business Hour with BT answers all the questions you may have.
When it comes to selling your startup business, nobody can actually have that passion that you've got for it yourself. For me, that's why the startup failure rate is high, because they don't know how to market and sell themselves.
Join Ian Dale every Thursday evening from 8 for the LBC Business Hour with BT, helping you to be there for the moments that matter in business. And LBC.
Are you about to put your audit out to tender? How will you decide which accountants to select? Whether you decide to spend more or less, go bigger or perhaps smaller, what you really need to do is choose the one best suited to your company. In which case, you should arrange a free meeting with Barnes Rofe. We know that every client has different needs because we spend the time to get to know them personally. Contact us at barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe. Clever accountants for business.
How do you get kids to eat more veg? Disguise it? Turn it into a game? Co-op are helping by supporting the Eat Them to Defeat Them campaign with these great deals. 500 grams of carrots, 49p, 1.5 kilograms of red potatoes, 89p, and 500 grams of parsnips, 69p. Help kids defeat veg today. Subject to availability, see participating stores for details.
Your business has come this far, but now's your time to soar into the skies of spectacular with a fast, affordable Funding Circle business loan. With decisions in as little as 24 hours and a dedicated account manager, there's no waiting around. So join the thousands of businesses who have taken out a Funding Circle loan and help your business fly. Apply today at fundingcircle.com. Authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. T's and C's apply.
Reasons to be cheerful. 1, 2, 3.
If you've got BT Broadband, BT Mobile have something just for you. You and everyone you live with get an exclusive £5 off our mobile plans every month. Of course, if you're not with BT, you might be wishing you were. BT Mobile gives back more.
Reasons to be cheerful. 1, 2, 3.
BT. Be there.
Discounted price for BT Broadband Homes excludes business. Buying workshop delights and travelling to meetings off-site. The client wants lobster for tea and then there's a conference across the sea. Fancy client biscuits, last-minute train tickets, light bulbs, booking flights, meeting snacks, black cabs. You do the maths. Say hello to Soldo. All expenses paid. Prepaid business expense cards for you and your team, so no one has to spend their own money at work. And Soldo connects seamlessly with Zero. A win-win for you and your business. Find out more at soldo.com.
There's a new way to report non-emergency incidents or crimes to the Met Police. So if you've seen or been in a... or you've been the victim of a... maybe your... has been stolen, you can report it online at met.police.uk. It's quick, it's more convenient, and it's handled by the same team who answer our calls. Incident or crime? Tell us online. Metropolitan Police Service.
Give your Ford a spring in its step with a Ford Motorcraft service for just £149 RRP. Now easier to book than ever with our new online service booking system. And save £10 on any Ford service when you quote Ford 10. Book now at ford.co.uk or visit your local participating dealer.
Recommended promotional price. Not available with other Ford promotions. Terms and conditions apply.
Leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
Tomorrow is March the 29th, and Jeanette quite rightly on Facebook says to me, we should be leaving tomorrow with no deal. That's right, Jeanette. That was the law of this country until last night, when MPs decided to extend that out to at least the 12th of April. Mike from Hampton says, I thought it was written in law. We were leaving on the 29th of March. No deal, please. Andy from Aberdeen says, hold on. I thought the EU said if the deal didn't go through, Britain would leave with no deal. Well, it said that in Article 50, Andy. Now, this is interesting. So this morning, I was there walking through a big crowd of people. A lot of them had opinions they wished to share with me. Some were polite, they weren't all. But interestingly, when I engaged people, virtually no one I spoke to realised that we weren't leaving tomorrow. They thought we were leaving tomorrow because they'd been told it 108 times by the Prime Minister. And if you think... and I'm addressing this to our political class, if you think you're already getting upset, anger, perhaps even little bits of abuse from your constituents who are frustrated and angry that their will is not being carried out, wait until people wake up on the morning of March the 30th and realise we haven't left the European Union. I think this gap between the politicians and the people is going to get bigger. But tomorrow, on that day, there is going to be a third attempt to get Mrs May's withdrawal treaty through. This is what the Leader of the House of Commons, Andrea Leadsom, said at 5 o'clock today. She said, as I set out to the House, the European Union will only agree an extension until May the 22nd if the withdrawal agreement is approved this week. Tomorrow's motion gives Parliament the opportunity to secure that extension. I encourage all MPs to support it and ensure that we leave the EU on the 22nd of May, giving people and business the certainty they need. OK. This is the motion that MPs will vote on tomorrow. I promise you, I'm not making this up. This is not a comedy sketch or a Mickey take. This is actually what MPs will vote on tomorrow. This is it. that this House notes that the European Council decision of the 22nd of March 2019, taken in agreement with the United Kingdom, extending the period under Article 50, subsection 3 of the Treaty on European Union, which provides for an extension to the Article 50 period to the 22nd of May 2019, only if the House of Commons approves the withdrawal agreement by the 29th of March 2019. Notes that if the House does not do so by that date, the Article 50 period will only as a matter of law be extended to the 12th of April 2019, and that any extension beyond the 22nd of May 2019 would require the UK to bring forward the necessary day of poll order to hold elections to the European Parliament. I'm not even halfway through yet. Notes that Article 184 of the withdrawal agreement refers to the political declaration between the UK and the EU agreed on the 25th of November 2018, but that the EU has stated it remains open to negotiating changes to the political declaration. Keep up at the back. Notes that the House is currently undertaking deliberations to identify whether there is a design for the future relationship that commands its support. Notes that even should changes be sought to the political declaration, leaving the European Union with a deal still requires the withdrawal agreement, because it declares that it wishes to leave the EU with an agreement as soon as possible and does not wish to have a longer extension. There's more. Therefore, approves the withdrawal agreement, the joint instrument and the unilateral declaration laid before the House on the 11th of March 2019 so that the UK can leave the EU on the 22nd of May 2019. Notes that this approval does not by itself meet requirements of the Section 13, subsection 1b of the European Union Withdrawal Act, and resolves that it is content to proceed to the next steps of this process, including fulfilling Section 13 of this Act. Ends. I mean, you couldn't invent it, could you? You could not invent it. And they wonder why the public are getting sick to death of the way Parliament is handling this process. I've never seen anything like it in all my life. But despite that, do you think MPs should now fall into line and support Mrs May's new treaty? Let's try Roger, a first-time caller from Harlow. Hi, Roger.
Hi, Nigel. I would just like to say that, yes, I think the MPs should fall into line because it would make life a little bit easier to get things through. But also, another point that I would like to make is Leave people were told they didn't know what they was voting for. They hadn't got a clue what they was voting for. But the indicative votes last night, all them MPs who said various things, they couldn't even decide on how to stay in the EU. So what chance has anyone got?
That's a good point. No, it's a very, very good point. Roger, I was struck by those 8 votes that fell last night, that there is only one very clear, very decisive majority that exists in this country, and that was the one that took place on the 23rd of June 2016 by a whopping majority of 1.35 million votes. People voted to leave the European Union, and Roger, if you believe opinion polls, there's even more of them would vote that way this time. Isn't that the one that matters?
Well, yeah, because what you're hearing is more and more people are getting cheesed off with what's going on, and they're saying, we now want to leave, because it's not only becoming a point of leave, it's becoming a point of democracy, because they're not doing as they're told.
Absolutely.
Let's be fair about this. It doesn't matter whether you like MPs or not, but with how Boris Johnson, Jacob Rees-Mogg and quite a few of the others have acted, could you really trust them in the future?
Well, that is a very good question. Boris has written and spoken about this new European treaty, Roger, in exactly the same terms that I have. You know, surrender document, disastrous, vassal state, many of the other things that Boris has said too. And yet he's now going to support it. And I just find that incredible. And I just don't think, Roger, he's ever going to be Prime Minister now.
I don't think he is. He had his chance when Theresa May.
He did. He did.
Before Theresa May.
He did.
And was there something in the Conservative Party, the actual party itself, that sort of stopped him from being Prime Minister?
I don't know. Gove withdrew his support, he lost his bottle. But what Boris was doing yesterday was basically putting party before his own conscience, and some would argue party before country. Roger, thank you. Heather agrees with that and says they put party before the country. I can't wait for a general election. Chris in Coulsdon says, sorry, mate, I'm confused by the motion. Don't worry, Chris, everybody is confused by the motion. Let's speak to Patrick from Taunton in Somerset. Good evening, Patrick.
Good evening, Nigel.
So, should MPs fall into line?
I would say yes, but I'd say this for this reason. Nigel, you and I know each other.
I recognise your voice. You're Patrick Nichols, aren't you?
I am Patrick Nichols, the very same. Nigel,
you were an MP for quite a number of years.
I was indeed. And I was the Conservative Shadow Fisheries Minister that got us to agree to withdraw from the Common Fisheries Policy until that was withdrawn by David Cameron. So I've got form on this. And if I was... Look, this deal, May's deal, at first sight, is not much cop, but it's got one big thing going for it, Nigel. It is real Brexit. No common fisheries policy.
When?
No common agricultural policy.
When?
Well, that's what her deal says. It's fine. It's real Brexit. It's got one huge disadvantage, which we both know, which is the backstop, being locked in forever.
Patrick, when you talk to me optimistically about what will happen with the fisheries policy or immigration or any of these things, they're all in the political declaration as aspirations for the future, but there's no guarantee, Patrick, we're going to get any of them.
Nigel, turn it around the other way. If, in fact, the agreement that we've got at the moment did not have the Irish backstop, in other words, for the sake of argument, we could leave by consent after 24 months or something like that. Virtually everyone I know, and I'd say possibly even you, Nigel, would agree that it's a real Brexit. It's not a great Brexit, but it's a real Brexit.
Well, Patrick, here's my problem. I didn't campaign for all those years to leave a European treaty to sign up to another European treaty.
Right. Now, that I've got, but the difference is this. Everyone is assuming that if we sign up to this, that we need Europe's consent to come out. Nigel, we don't. You know as well as I do. There's a basic principle of British constitutional law that no parliament can bind its successor. If in 5 or 10 years' time we've got a government which has got the bottle to say, look, we signed up to this agreement, we've tried to negotiate our way out in good faith, they won't agree, right, we use domestic legislation to come out, Nigel, and we take the consequences. We are not locked in forever.
Patrick,
That's what a sovereign parliament means.
Patrick, tell me, when is the Conservative Party going to find a leader with bottle?
I'm not standing, Nigel. It's very soon to try and put me up for it, but I've decided not to do it, mate. Okay.
All right, Patrick, so if you were there, you would go with this and say, look, it's not perfect, but we get on with it.
I go one stage further, Nigel. I say it's not perfect, and we are not locked in forever because we can actually use our own legislation to disapply it, and then we take the consequences.
Well, we need a Prime Minister and a Parliament with a lot more guts and resolve than the one we've got today. I do take your point, but I'm just not sure I've got that much trust in the future. Patrick, thank you very much indeed for that call. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's 6:31 on Time for the News with Lisa Aziz.
MPs will vote on part of the government's Brexit deal tomorrow, but it won't be counted as a third meaningful vote because it doesn't also cover the future relationship with Europe. They're just going to decide on the withdrawal legal section, not the political declaration, to get it through Parliament. 19 people have died and around 70 others have been injured in a major fire in a high-rise office block in Bangladesh's capital. Authorities say military helicopters have been used to shatter windows in the 21-storey building to free toxic gas. The fire started in Dhaka's busy commercial area this morning. A man is facing life in prison for murdering a 17-year-old and hiding his body in a loft in Enfield for 8 months. 37-year-old Gary Hopkins stabbed Abdi Ali to death at his home in North London. The victim was a drug dealer linked to a gang. LBC weather, clear and dry for most overnight, with patchy fog in southern and western parts of England. Windy though further north, with rain expected later, a low of -1.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7. LBC.
Teenage psychosis is linked to air pollution in cities for the first time. Caroline Russell is Green Party, London Assembly member.
This is really important action by the Mayor of London. I wish he'd go further.
How am I meant to go and be a gas spitter if I haven't got my van?
Using electric assist cargo bikes.
Yes, I can't bring a gas boiler on a bicycle, can I?
There are cargo bike companies that will deliver a boiler to you on a bicycle.
No, I'm sorry, Caroline. Do you know what a boiler weighs? You'd have to have the thighs of a rugby player to get it up a hill.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Xero, get your business digital ready with Xero accounting software.
LBC.
Sky Sports F1 is the home of live and exclusive F1, and there's never been a better time to join. For just £10 extra a month, watch every practice, qualifying and race live and in stunning HD.
Oh, that was magic, man.
Just £10 extra a month, an incredible price guaranteed for 2 years.
Oh, this is amazing.
Our best ever offer ends April 1st. Search Sky Sports F1. Sky Entertainment, £22 a month, required with new 18-month contract. Set up fee up to £20. Further terms apply.
It's time. Time to join the millions of people that meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. With stunning HD video, crisp audio, and instant wireless sharing across any mobile, tablet, or desktop device. But the best thing about Zoom? It just works. So ditch the distractions, join the movement, and meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Visit zoom.us to set up your free account today. That's zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing.
Spotted this week in the middle of Lidl. 20-volt lithium-ion power tools. Get a cordless jigsaw or impact driver for $39.99. A cordless circular saw just $49.99. And 2 or 4 amp-hour batteries from $12.99. From Thursday the 28th of March. Lidl. Big on quality, little on price. Subject to availability, selected stores, excludes NI.
Set for Life is the new game from the National Lottery where you can win 10 grand every month for 30 years. So now you can jump into June, make October a scream, and stick a rocket up November. Make every month amazing. Play new Set for Life Mondays and Thursdays. Amazing starts here. Prize may be capped. Rules, procedures and game-specific rules apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say it to you, but maybe not Mum and Dad. I don't think they would be able to do that.
Really? I think Mum will help us. I spoke to her about it before.
Really? What did she say?
I just think she will help us if she can at the time.
If she can, though.
Yeah.
I don't know. Getting onto the property ladder seems like a million miles away.
It isn't easy talking to your family about money, but it is important. The M word from Lloyds Bank. It's good to talk about money.
ISAs. They're all pretty. But what if there was one that was more...
That's what you get from Vitality. It's an ISA, but with more oomph. Invest in Vitality funds, and on top of any returns, we'll give you bigger and bigger boosts every 5 years. Up to 15% over 25 years. Apply for a new ISA by April the 5th, and we'll also give you full cashback on your product charge for the first year. Just search Vitality Invest ISA. Vitality. Positively different. Capital at risk. Minimum investment and T's and C's apply.
Dreaming of a new kitchen? At Wix, we take care of everything for you, from expert design to an installation service you can trust. And all our kitchens come at a great price. There's 50% off Wix showroom units in our multi-buy when you buy 5 or more. Book your free design appointment at wix.co.uk.
How do you make sure your mum has the best Mother's Day? My secret is to pop around with something special. This year, I'm going to pick up a bottle of irresistible Prosecco and a 200-gram box of selected Lindt chocolates for just £10 from the Co-op. So Mum gets a special treat and some time with me. Perfect. Subject to availability, see participating stores for details. Ends March 31st. Drink responsibly.
You know your business, what keeps you up at night, and the moments that make it all worthwhile. You know your 5-year plan, and that you really want to be there in 2. We know we can help you get there. Barclays offers unsecured loans of up to £100,000 that can be with you in days or even hours. To apply for a loan that's right for your business, search Barclays Business Loans. Let's go forward. Subject to status, T's and C's apply, guarantee may be needed.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
So the House of Commons tomorrow debating and voting for a third time on the withdrawal agreement, the new European treaty, and we know with the promise that if it goes through, Mrs May will leave her post as Prime Minister, that some like Boris Johnson, etc., now say they are going to support it. My view is there are still enough Conservative backbenchers who think the whole thing is the most appalling treaty, the worst deal in history. They're not going to support it. The DUP are not going to support it. And I just don't think there are enough people in the Labour Party that will come for this. I really, honestly and truthfully don't. But I have to admit, I could well be wrong. Let's try some good news, shall we? How about that? No, there really is some good news out. Some good Brexit news. And that is a Sky News interview with Jean-Marc Poussisseau, and he is the port's boss in Calais. He says the Port of Calais is ready for Brexit whenever it happens. He says, we've been planning for a no-deal Brexit for more than a year, so we've been improving the flow of traffic. We started the building work back in January with a deadline of having it done by the 29th of March. The only difference, he says, with a no-deal Brexit is that e-declarations have to be done before they leave the country. That's like on mobile phones or iPads. All right, it takes 3 or 4 seconds, but that's what the driver will have to do. And he makes the point that actually there'll be no more checks done on lorries or goods or vehicles than are being done today. And once again, these scare stories get shot down. Now, Chris and Chris from Selby sent me a message that I think is a bit depressing, but perhaps not wholly surprising. It is with great sadness that we will not be voting in the future. We should have left tomorrow, and now it will never happen. Lies, lies, lies. Chris and Chris, all I would say to you is this. This is exactly what the Remainers want. They want to wear you down. They want us to give up so that in the end they win. And we must not allow them to do that. Gosh, the damage that's been done to our democracy. And we're talking all the time, aren't we, about these splits in the Conservative Party. What about the Labour Party? What about Jeremy Corbyn voting for a second referendum? All Labour MPs, bar 27, voting for a second referendum. And I get this from Hartlepool. Hartlepool, born and bred, voted Labour loyally for 40 years, voted Brexit in 16. I will not vote Labour again, says Ian from Hartlepool. So all political parties having huge problems over this. Before the break, we had former Conservative Minister Patrick Nicholls on. He thinks the right thing is to get behind this deal and then to get a more robust Prime Minister and sort our future out. And that is an attitude that some people take. Others of us take the view that actually because of the backstop, we're potentially we're either stuck in the customs union forever or we have to annex a part of our sovereign territory of the United Kingdom. I also have to say I don't see why we're paying $39 billion in return for nothing either. But hey, let's try Johnny, a new caller from Stoke Newington. Good evening, Johnny.
Hello, Nigel. The whole thing's a quagmire, isn't it? It's just one complete mess.
Well, there was a solution, Johnny. There was a very easy solution. You know, we could have followed the law of the land. We could have followed the thing that 498 MPs voted for, and we could still be leaving at 11 p.m. tomorrow night. But they voted against that, Johnny.
Yeah, I mean, these 2-year talks, this was about an amicable withdrawal. That's what it was all about at the end of the day. And we've been frog marched off down this direction, that direction. And, I mean, if any MP votes for her deal tomorrow, they're literally locking us into years and years of torture.
That's my view, yeah.
That's going to be utter complete torture. And what I noticed last week when she scolded the MPs off for not voting for her deal, it seemed that Sky, the BBC and what have you, all their reporters were coming out the next day, almost reaching out to those MPs, apologising to them on her behalf in a desperate attempt that they will come and vote for her deal. It's absolutely crazy.
Johnny, I can tell if you were there, you would not vote for this new treaty, would you?
Definitely not.
No? Well, Johnny, you couldn't be clearer. I'm going to move on to Cardiff to speak to David, a first-time caller. Good evening, David.
It's a wolf.
Hello. Hi.
I was just referring to your Portillo interview.
Yeah, he was great, wasn't he? He was great. And Michael had said that he was, of course, he thought maybe we should go with this treaty, but now he's thinking very, very differently about it, because it could lock us in, David. But, David, I mean, is it the pragmatic, loyal thing for Conservative backbenchers tomorrow, whether they're ultra-leavers or ultra-remainers, to get behind their leader?
Well, before, I would say yes, but I think when they were tackling the backstop, I think they looked at it at the wrong angle, and they should have gone back to the money. And actually, if they held back 20 billion, if we're in the backstop for more than a year, then we keep the 20 billion, and we only release it when we've actually come out the backstop. Alternatively, possibly an arbitration with the WTO or some kind of international organisation that could oversee to see that it's fair that we leave.
Well, yes, and, you know, that using Article 24 of the GATT Treaty would have been a very grown-up way forward, David, but it's not the one this Prime Minister has chosen.
What about holding back the money? Do you think that was a possibility?
The one thing you don't do in any negotiation is give away all the cash before anything's been promised back to you, and that's what she's done. David, this is a chronic failure of leadership at every level, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's gone on for 2 years, and I can't believe the Cabinet signed up to it when half of them are leavers.
Well, they're not, you see. They're not, you see. Yeah, but actually, since she's been Prime Minister, on average, it's been 2/3 a third Remain versus Leave in that Cabinet.
One other thing, quickly. My local MP, who's quite senior Labour, he reckoned quite a few would actually vote for it because they're getting a lot of pressure from businesses and their constituents to actually just back it up and vote for it. So I don't know.
Well, I think it's a bit late for that now for Labour MPs because nearly all of them yesterday voted for a second referendum, and that's the thing, I think, David, that will really, really cost them votes. David, thank you for your call. Pablo says, Nigel, you're good at criticising everyone and everything. What's your solution? Pablo, leave tomorrow at 11 p.m. Oh, the law's changed. All right, let's leave at 11 p.m. then on the 12th of April. Let's just get this over and done with. You've seen what the Mayor of Calais has said. You know now that the aeroplanes are going to fly, that all of these incredible Millennium Bug type stories simply aren't true. Let's leave. Let's get on with the rest of our lives. And I think that is a positive, grown-up, sensible solution. From America, on Twitter, I get, it's so strange watching all of this from across the pond. It seems obvious things are at an impasse. So next Monday, the Parliament is going to choose from the highest ranked options from among a list of options that were all defeated. How does defeated not mean defeated? I can't really explain that. I mean, it's just quite extraordinary. And I have a feeling that next Monday, there won't be a majority for anything. Only one majority out there. That's the majority in the country to leave, and it's not being honoured by the House of Commons, and I'm afraid by our Prime Minister, and in my view, this withdrawal treaty. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, here on LBC at 6:45 and time for the news headlines with Lisa Raziz.
The Commons Speaker John Bercow has now cleared the way for MPs to debate and vote on the EU withdrawal part of Theresa May's Brexit deal only tomorrow. A man in his 20s has died after being stabbed in the neck in Liverpool this afternoon. Thousands of passengers have been left stranded after the budget airline WOW Air stopped flying. LBC weather, clear and dry for most overnight, with patchy fog in the south, windy though further north, a low of -1.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. On the M25 anti-clockwise, there are queues from junction 3 for the M20 to the Dartford Tunnel after there was an accident earlier on. In Fulham Palace Road stays closed in both directions at Wardour Road. That's because of an accident. That means there are queues from the Hammersmith Gyratory and also going over Putney Bridge. The Red Bridge roundabout is partly blocked because of an accident, so there are queues on the North Circular from the Beckton roundabout and the M11, and there are queues on the A12 from Hackney Wick and also from the Gants Hill roundabout. And there's no London tram link for the rest of the day because of a strike, except for a limited service between East Croydon and Wimbledon.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
I'm sniffing the political wind, and I can sniff a general election in the offing. Is an election the only way out of this political stalemate, or do you think it would solve nothing?
Ian Dale on LBC.
Get Productive is the new productivity podcast from Great Western Railway, helping you to maximise your downtime. With tips and tricks from CEOs across the UK, from what their average day looks like to what it really takes to be successful.
I have a lot of energy and I'm still get extremely inspired and excited by ideas.
Have a brilliant team around you, especially non-exec directors.
Have a listen now via the Global Player or wherever you get your podcasts.
What will happen when the UK leaves the EU? Do I need to renew my passport earlier than planned?
I'm an EU citizen living in the UK. How will this affect me?
Will mobile roaming change? How will exporting my goods be affected?
You might also have questions about how leaving the EU affects you.
Find guidance and up-to-date information at gov.uk/EU exit.
How do you get kids to eat more veg? Disguise it? Turn it into a game? Co-op are helping by supporting the Eat Them to Defeat Them campaign with these great deals. 500 grams of carrots, 49p, 1.5 kilograms of red potatoes, 89p, and 500 grams of parsnips, 69p. Help kids defeat veg today. Subject to availability, see participating stores for details.
The great British weather. One day you're cozying in with the family, the next you're chilling out in the garden. But whatever you're doing, Trusted Trader are always on hand to help. TrustedTrader.com have lots of really lovely tradespeople who are vetted, reviewed and reliable, unlike the weather. So for roofers who stop the rain coming in, gardeners for when the sun comes out, and other professionals in their trade, simply visit
TrustedTrader.com.
Let's go through the numbers.
Yes, with the Vonage business phone system, you can make unlimited calls to UK landlines, UK mobiles, and even international numbers, all for one low price.
Unlimited calls. Amazing.
Shall we?
Okay, let's do this.
Make Vonage part of your entourage. A business-ready phone system with unlimited call plans from £12 a month. To find out more, go to vonage.co.uk. Unlimited calling applies to standard UK landline numbers. Terms apply.
Vonage. Sounds like good business to me.
Buying workshop delights and travelling to meetings off-site. The client wants lobster for tea, and then there's a conference across the sea. Fancy client biscuits, last-minute train tickets, light bulbs, booking flights, meeting snacks, black cabs. You do the maths. Say hello to Soldo. All expenses paid. Prepaid business expense cards for you and your team, so no one has to spend their own money at work. And Soldo connects seamlessly with Xero. A win-win for you and your business. Find out more at soldo.com.
Days and weeks can fly by, but if you're worried it's cancer, time can slow down and almost stop. That's why, with Bupa Health Insurance, you can call us about any symptom of cancer without seeing your GP first. Depending on your cover and your symptoms, we could even refer you to a consultant there and then. Bupa Health Insurance. For living. To find out more, search Bupa. Direct access services may not be available for some underwriting methods, and you may need to provide evidence that conditions are not pre-existing.
There's a new way to report non-emergency incidents or crimes to the Met Police. So if you've seen or been in a... or you've been the victim of a... maybe your... has been stolen, you can report it online at met.police.uk. It's quick, it's more convenient, and it's handled by the same team who answer our calls. Incident or crime? Tell us online. Metropolitan Police Service.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
It's the last-ditch attempt, the third and final attempt for Mrs May to get the withdrawal agreement, the new European treaty, passed by Parliament. And, of course, she said if it is passed, she'll go as Prime Minister. But fact is, if it's not passed, she's going to go as Prime Minister at some point before the end of this year, maybe by the conference in the autumn, I don't know, but she'll be gone either way. And I would argue much better for a new Prime Minister not to have this new European treaty, which is going to lead to years of acrimony with the European Commission. Much better to have a fresh Prime Minister, a fresh start, press the reset button and start again. That, of course, if we're not going to leave with no deal. And who will replace Theresa May? Well, a quick snapshot Sky Data poll. Boris Johnson, the most popular, with 20%, ahead of Amber Rudd, Michael Gove and Sajid Javid on 8% and Jeremy Hunt on 7%. But that was before Boris did what he did last night, and I think that's going to damage Boris. Indeed, I'm getting tweets in here. Boris Johnson will never now be Prime Minister. He blew it. That is a little bit of my view too, given that 2/3 of Conservative voters want us to leave with no deal. Mary's frustrated from Holloway. She says, I wish all of them in Parliament would stop being so childish. Get a move on. 2 years should have been long enough. Well, the wording of Article 50, Mary, it was up to 2 years. It could have happened before then, but it didn't. Herman is a first-time caller from Bangalore in India. Herman, welcome.
Hi, Nigel. I'm a long-time follower and a fan. Good to talk to you.
But are you holidaying in Bangalore or working in Bangalore?
I'm just visiting family here.
Right, okay, but tuning into LBC. Very good. So, Herman, what should those MPs who previously have not supported this new treaty, what should they do? Should they fall into line and swallow their pride or not?
Well, I think they should stand by their character and continue not supporting the treaty.
What if you're a passionate Brexiteer and you can't support this new treaty? Is there not a risk that there might be no Brexit at all? Is that a risk?
Well, the treaty is much worse than no Brexit at all, so I think that's a risk worth taking.
Herman, why do you think that?
Well, it's just the withdrawal agreement starting off with the £39 billion. I mean, come on, that's just ludicrous.
Yep, £39 billion. We have taxation without representation. We have to accept all laws that they make in the intervening time, and they can trap us in the customs union forever. Herman, I'm with you. Thank you. Enjoy your holiday in Bangalore. Let's go to Westcliff-on-Sea and speak to Pat, a first-time caller. Good evening, Pat.
Good evening, Nigel.
Good evening. So, what should they do? I mean, Boris is now going to toe the line. Jacob Rees-Mogg, I'm not quite sure what he's going to do. What do you think they should do?
Well, very disappointed with those two. I thought they would be the absolute champions of this, apart from yourself, right? But it turns out, when it comes to the party, they toe the party line.
Oh, yeah.
And very, very disappointing. But one thing I will say is for everybody out there, right, who is a Brexiteer, stand fast, right? It doesn't matter if this is going on for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. I've been waiting for nearly 35, 40 years, right, for a referendum to come up, right? Yeah. And it's not just me. There are millions and millions of us who are in that position.
So you must be feeling pretty upset, Pat, then.
God, jeez. You think so?
It sounds a bit like it. And what's your message, Pat? I mean, I had Chris and Chris from Selby sent me a text earlier on in this show saying they'll leave us, but because we're not leaving tomorrow, they'll never vote again. What would you say to them?
Vote. It's the only thing you've got to fight with.
Right. So
Don't give up.
Keep fighting. Vote. Well, Pat, I'll tell you something.
Keep fighting.
I'll tell you something.
Believe me, Nigel, if you put a party together, right, I'll be part of it. I've never ever been part of a political party before. But if you get one together, I'm with you.
You feel that strongly. Pat, thank you for the call. We're going to Saarbrücken now, which is on the Franco-German border, and speaking to Brett, a first-time caller. Good evening, Brett.
Good evening, Nigel. Thank you for taking my call.
Welcome. So, what should happen to... Is it time to get behind Mrs May's European treaty?
No. It's never been time. It wasn't the first time. It wasn't the second time.
Right.
I really don't understand how she thinks by leaving or promising to leave, suddenly her deal becomes better. I really don't understand that. Apart from the simple, we want to sort of save the Tory party afterwards.
Yes.
The fact that they even think, that anyone's going to be voting for them in the next 5 years, definitely, if not longer, it really surprises me. It's just, and I agree with your last caller, and you had a great caller on last night. I was listening to a woman where she was talking about Boris and Jacob.
Yeah.
Where she said as well, they've shot themselves into the political wilderness now by doing a U-turn before they've even, how can you have even a prime minister? Think of Jacob now as a prime minister, like I was thinking maybe in a few years down the line, when he's already turning around on something like this, something so important, because the words he's been using talking in the last few weeks against this deal.
Oh, Brett, absolutely. All the stuff I've been saying too, surrender document, vassal state, all the rest of it, and suddenly it's okay because Mrs May's going to resign. Do you think Boris might have put his personal ambitions before his principles?
I think it's starting to turn out like that, but I have to say there as well, I mean, you've probably heard this many times, is I think the whole House is putting personal ambitions, as it's been stated many times before. Both parties ran in an election after the referendum on the promise that they would respect the result and deliver Brexit.
Yeah.
And both parties, I mean, if we voted either one of them, but we voted for one of them. I actually wrote this evening some commentary. I think that someone should petition the Queen and say, look, your government has blatantly lied to the people.
A lot of you want the Queen to intervene, but...
For the sake of...
Brett,
someone's got to step in because,
it won't be the Queen, Brett.
In the House...
It won't be the Queen. It won't be the Queen. You know, the Queen can pick a Prime Minister or help pick a Prime Minister in extremis, but it won't be the Queen that directly intervenes. Brett, I'm going to let you go. I want to get one last caller in very quickly. Chris is a first-time caller from Brighton in East Sussex. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Nigel. Hi, how are you?
Oh, having a lovely time. Really enjoying every minute of it. But hoping, crossing my fingers, that this modern-day Treaty of Versailles gets voted down tomorrow. That's my view. What do you think, Chris?
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, I say unfortunately, I'm a non-voter. I didn't vote one way or the other. I couldn't weigh it up at the time, and I thought, I don't know enough about it to go one way or the other. However, I just cannot believe that the government the Parliament are doing this. You know, people have voted, whether I agree with it or not. They just need to take some action and move forward.
Chris, can I ask you, and I'm sorry time is so short, but can I just ask you one question? Do you think our democracy and trust in our whole system is under threat?
100%.
Yeah, well, I do too. And I think that, and I have to end it there, but that actually is the most important point that comes out of all of this, in my view. Now, I'm going to be back on Sunday morning, where we will still be members of the European Union. Tomorrow night at 6... sitting in this chair, it's going to be Jacob Rees-Mogg. I have a feeling the switchboards could be quite busy. At 10 tonight, it's Tom Swarbrick, but up next, it's Ian Dale.
Nigel, do you remember on Tuesday, Crispin Blunt, the Tory MP, described the